I'm not a big believer typically of the mid-round quarterback selection. I know Russell Wilson worked out. I get it. But I think you can get...
I still think Russell at the 3rd round, that's a high draft.
Absolutely. But I'm including 3rd round in what I would consider mid-round. 3, 4, 5.
Okay, yes.
Because you can get all-pro, certainly Pro Bowl caliber players at different positions. You get Kareem Hunt was a 3rd round pick, won the rushing title. Like, you can get really good players other spots there.
Yeah, I was a 4th round.
And in the supplemental draft for different reasons, but sure, it's incredibly rare you get a starting quarterback in that spot. We've seen them be undrafted. We've seen them be the very end of the draft like Brady, and then we see a bunch of first-round picks. So, in general, I don't think that is a good use of draft resources. That's first of all. Second of all, this is not the type of draft where you would anticipate where the Pats are sitting at 32, even if they move up 5, 8, 10 spots. It's not last year where there's 5 potential first-round picks.
And then there was like Rudolph
at quarterback.
What's his name that the Steelers took?
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph. There were a couple others.
But that's a guy, by the way, that I think that's probably a wasted pick. The Steelers, a guy I like, Josh Dobbs. Like, you spend a premium pick on a guy who's probably projects to be a backup. But I also think this, with respect to your guy Peter King, I think it is a fool's errand to predict anything the Patriots are going to do in the draft. Because last year, the thing about the draft we all seemed unanimous on was, of every team, what we know is the Patriots will draft a quarterback. They traded away Brissett. They traded away Garoppolo. Brian Hoyer is almost Tom Brady's age.
Yes.
They have these extra picks. Of course they're drafting a quarterback. And they didn't take one until Danny Etling in the 7th round, which is just a flyer throwaway. So I am not as convinced as Peter King that the Patriots will draft a quarterback, and I don't know that this is the draft to do it.
And I'm not certain that the replacement for Tom Brady, I know this might be shocking, it might not come through the draft. The Patriots, they're not a great drafting team. We tell the Tom Brady story, but, man, they miss more than they hit in the draft. The best draft that they do is you play 2 or 3 years with another team.
Yes.
Let me get some film on you. Then I'll bring you into my building. That's the way that I have seen them do on a regular and more consistent basis. Yes, they draft offensive linemen. They draft linebackers. They draft, because they need those things. But if you look at most of their players, they come from, hey, man, let me get a retread here. Oh, he left him out on the curb. Let me try to see if I can get something. So I wouldn't be consumed with just the draft. This is not a great quarterback class, and I just believe they might do something out of the box. And
what does that mean?
I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots looked at a guy like Cap. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't have the intel that Peter King does, but I just think that they'll do it a different way. I know that the Crafts are very, very fond of Colin Kaepernick. And I know that situation that we've had as far as the national anthem, they wish that we would have never gone down that road. I'm just saying, outside the box, if someone will do it, it will be the people in New England compared to the conventional way. We get a guy in the 2nd and 3rd round. He sit behind Brady 2 or 3 years. I'm just open to that, and I believe you should start looking at other situations besides the draft to how they're going to look to get Tom Brady's replacement.
Well, I was thinking about situations aside from the draft. Now, I wasn't thinking about Colin Kaepernick, even though I find that really interesting, and I think it would fit beautifully. But what about Josh Rosen? What about a guy you might be able to buy a little low on? A guy who could sit behind Brady when the Cardinals, with a new head coach, with all the buzz surrounding their coach and his feelings on Kyler Murray, that this isn't the guy that picked Josh Rosen. That Rosen, obviously, there would be no bigger discrepancy in going from being thrown into the fire as a rookie in Arizona and then the next year being able to sit behind the GOAT, learn from Belichick and McDaniels, watch and observe for a year or two, a guy who I believe has checks all the boxes as far as throwing motion, accuracy, pedigree from high school to college, all those things. Like, could you trade the 32nd pick and a 3rd round pick, which they have extras of, to go get Josh Rosen, give the Cardinals a little extra ammunition if they want to move up from 12 to 7 or 6 in order so they can draft Kyler Murray. That, to me, fits what you're talking about in where it's not necessarily through the draft, but you are also getting a young quarterback that fits the time horizon of Tom Brady potentially quite well.
So that's so interesting, because the question I was going to ask you is, if you're not going to go through the draft, do you look for a guy who is sort of similar to Tom Brady, so you don't change your system around too much, but you have a guy that can sort of move in there, and you have a cerebral quarterback like Josh Rosen, who actually seems to fit the bill. I don't know probably as detailed as you do, but it seems like that could be a smooth transition.
No. If you talk about some of the things he does off the field, he is a deep thinker. He wants more than football. I could see him working with Josh McDaniel and Bill Belichick. Yeah, I like it. That's a name that I didn't think of. The problem there is, does he think that Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than Josh Rosen? And I don't believe that they think that. Because now, if we had a Peyton Manning, if we had a guy in the draft that we thought was a top 5 pick, then I could see that being more of a realistic opportunity. But they are not just going to be consumed with the draft. They will look at free agency, other quarterbacks out there. I wouldn't be surprised they looked at Teddy Bridgewater, that he would be a name, a guy that in the pocket is going to deliver the football, plays on timing, don't need a big arm to build to play the position. I believe that with Tom Brady being your quarterback, what Bill Belichick would look for is traits in a quarterback. That's what Mangini talks about when he sits here. And that, can a guy manage the game? Is he going to be the first guy in the building? Is he going to let us continue to play the Patriot way? Is he going to be unselfish? So there's a number of things that I think that they're looking at, and sometimes those young guys in the draft, and this year's crop is not a great crop of quarterback once you get through the first 2. Do they take that chance?
One other name I'm going to throw out there, a guy who was there, but the Patriots had a need at wide receiver. They had another backup quarterback there at the time, but I think has shown that he can be a starter at one point in this league, and I think people think highly of is Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett, like Andrew Luck's healthy now. He is more valuable to teams other than the Colts than he is to the Colts. And I think Jacoby Brissett, like when we were talking, I thought about the show after the show yesterday, when we were talking about what other options Denver would have had that would have been cheaper, that maybe would have had more upside. And I wish I would have brought up Jacoby Brissett there. I think he will be, when people see the price tag associated with Nick Foles, when people see whether or not Teddy Bridgewater is going to sign with New Orleans, re-sign before he even hits free agency, Jacoby, I don't think they traded him because they didn't like him. I think they had a need. Garoppolo was still there. For him. They got a former first-round pick for him, and I thought he acquitted himself quite well when he filled in for Andrew Luck the year before.
And I know my classmate Bill Parcells, he's mentored Jacoby, and he thinks that he's going to be a starter and a winner in this league, and he has a lot of those traits that we talked about, Brady-type traits, as far as being a guy playing from the pocket. He's been in that system, been in the building, so they've worked with him. I could see him also being like, I could sit behind Tom.
Of course.
And be able to trust the coaches and the ownership there.
You'd rather sit behind Tom than Luck, because Luck you think is going to play another 10 years.
Yes.
You know, like if you want to be a starter at one point, sorry to interrupt, but that's okay. It would make more sense to sit behind.
Those are a couple good names though. Josh Rosen, Jacoby Brissett.
It's a fun conversation. It'll be an interesting conversation as we get closer to age 45 for Tom. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.